Hi everyone, I'm just going to share my screen, a little bit of a pre-record here, particularly to focus on ideas for gathering and representing site information. So before tomorrow's site visit, I just wanted to touch base about the collection of materials on site and what that might how it might be useful for giving your drawings, I guess, a personal tone. How we represent becomes very important. So you'll have these sections, and throughout the term, these techniques and these examples are things we could all be referring to. So last week I did show these lovely sections from last year. That's where a group of students used a technique which I will talk about in a minute, called eco-dyeing. But I'm just going to come back to this sequence where the slides are, but the work of Anna Simryn, we will have a look at. Anna is exhibiting at the Museum of Contemporary Art in this Circular Quay, and I thoroughly recommend you go in and have a look at her work face to face. It's beautiful. Outside our studio door, and perhaps this was from your studio last year, but I noticed this pin-up board, "How is country speaking to your heart?" And I thought, I wonder if that's from your studio last year. Now, this is a collection of materials, of course, the material sort of quality of the site. You are studying landscape architecture. And part of the skill and technique of that is how we represent these things. And in the histories, in the lineage of architecture and landscape architecture, the representation of ideas becomes very, very important within the profession. Sorry, my phone's going on. I won't answer it just yet. So there's something very literal about this collection here on the right, and I would like you to work and develop techniques to move into more abstraction, but to still maintain beauty. And this sort of literalness, I saw again within our master's students last year, where the sort of pin-up of some bits of material from the site. Now that is valid, and I think sometimes it's good, and in a presentation it can be sort of a bit charming to have something real and physical within digital work or even pin-up work. But I'm very interested in people in the studio developing techniques about re-representing. And we will talk about this more, but before tomorrow's class, in the work of Anna Simryn, when I stop sharing my screen, I've got a book of hers here with me too, but I found it very beautiful. It's 1-to-1. It's at scale in the MCA, and I think she has rolled or like rubbed charcoal, perhaps. I'm a little unsure how she's done it, but she's done it to memorialise to a garden in Marrickville, I think, that was getting bowled over, knocked down. Now, up close, you can see the textures seem to be charcoal. I'm a little unsure how she's done it, but this is something people could sort of work on. But you can see the shapes of the aloes there and whatever other plants are in there. There's figs there, there's grasses, etc. I thought it was just very beautiful, and this idea of 1-to-1, I think, becomes very interesting. And look, it's a little bit like a section of a plant. If you're drawing a section of those bird of paradises, you can see in the you see my mouse, here, these bird of paradise plants here. This is probably something like fennel gone to seed. This is perhaps ginger over here. I'm a little unsure what that is. But my friend, who's an artist, Liz Gervais, she's a member of the Tree Veneration Society, who may overlap us a little bit on the Cooper Park site. I did jump around to her and say, what do you reckon she's done? And we did sort of look at a few techniques of just pressing over, even on paper towels with charcoal. Different colour cards work in different kind of ways, so like a rubbing. And that may be the technique that Anna has used here, and whether she's cleaned it up I mean, she did make the Museum of Contemporary Art, so it's obviously a worked on piece. But I think the idea of one-to-one is really interesting. How you record textures of the site versus this. I think it just speaks into something else and becomes perhaps more subjective and more beautiful in a way. You know, beauty is subjective. But I just think let's look at some of these techniques. The only book I could buy of Anna Simryn's work when I was at the museum in December when I noticed it was, and I'll show you a fuller version, was a book that had these images in of hers where she collects pieces and photocopies them. There's basil on the right there. It looks like fennel, perhaps dill, but I think it's fennel on the left. Perhaps a geranium leaf there. There's a dandelion here with thistle or something. And she just straight up photocopies them. I'll show you a few more images when I stop sharing screen. So that's the Anna Simryn work. Both the rolling and the photocopying as two techniques to think of. Eco-dyeing, and this is something I want to talk with you more about right now. I had our second years do it last year, and it's by eco-dyeing that we had students produce these sort of textures, and it can be very beautiful to use as a render in a section or elsewhere throughout the term. So I think as the site visit is tomorrow, I want you to have these techniques in your mind. So rolling or rubbing, photocopying, or eco-dyeing. Now, eco-dyeing, here's how you do it. And I will, where have I got them? And I will, I did a workshop on it at the beginning of last year, and I took notes. So eco-dyeing, we were making an eco book. I was at the Woodford Folk Festival in Queensland. And this is the kind of result you get for it. It's very beautiful, and it's very of the site. The different colours come from, if anyone's ever done any dyeing, come from what's called sort of mordants and different tones in it. And the blue comes from using purple carrots, and I'll explain that a little bit also. If you've got any purple carrots that you've been grating lately, keep the skins. If you've got any red cabbage, that can be good too. Red and brown onion skins are also excellent. I have been collecting red and brown onion skins, mostly brown, for you for the last year actually. So I will bring them tomorrow on site, so you'll all have your own handful of onion skins to play with. Now, so the idea is that you collect, you take an A3 piece of watercolor paper, and you also need an aluminium pot. If any of you got an aluminium pot at home, that's what you need. You also need a little bit of rust or iron, some other metal, and this is what acts as the mordant. You can look at what a mordant is, M-O-R-D-A-N-T. It's like a setting agent. When you have red onions, and so different metals and different plants like red onions or cabbage, etc., do have different effects. And the woman teaching this session, she said red onions in a copper pot make things go green. So she had all sorts of different possibilities about it. I will bring tomorrow some watercolor paper, and I've got some A3 and A4. The woman running this course, she said she used a bone handle to press down the edges. So we were doing like folded up paper. And you'll see, I'll just say we had A3 and we made a couple of cuts. We folded it like that. We separated it into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8 sort of segments by fold. And then we cut it up 3/4 like this. We were making a booklet. You don't have to make a booklet. You could just do the plain sheet. We folded it like that. And when we were collecting leaves, she said to use little leaves with good shapes, like a little fern or smaller banksias, and that'll help create pattern. And then you start laying the leaf or whatever you've got in the paper, and you do paper, then you do your leaves, and then you do onion skins, and you always do in that order within each fold. So that was her doing the first fold, and she said go heavy-handed on the onion skins, and there we are putting the onion skins on top. So see, they were the first leaves, and then these are just onion skins. Then another layer of leaf, and then you fold the paper down, scrunch it up, and then you start doing the next layer. You do all the layers in your little book if you're doing that book. Then you grab paddle pops. Now, I had some, and I think I've finished them all. I will try and get some today before tomorrow to give you tomorrow. If I fail at that, there's other techniques, but if I've got the paddle pops, I'll give you some. Paddle pops and elastic bands, and you create pressure. So you make a little booklet full of different layers of your textures of the site. You could have a feather in there, you could have small leaves, etc. With the onion skins. She said a bathroom towel can also be good if you clip it, like with bull clips. You need something to create that pressure to press it together. And the sticks, whatever you use, will also make a pattern when you put them into water. We're going to put all of this into water. So you use a towel with leaves and skin underneath to not get a stick pattern, if you didn't want the stick pattern. But I don't think that really matters for us too much. She said a good pre-mordant, oh, that's right, there's mordant and pre-mordants. A good pre-mordant is you dip the whole thing in seawater. If you lived in the ocean, homemade salt water doesn't work. We were doing it as part of a workshop. We had to write our names on the outside. And then you drop it in your first, what's called the pre-soak pot. So it's about half white vinegar and half water. And you let it sit there for a couple of minutes, so it's had a good, decent soak. She said it's super hard to control the pattern. So when you're putting things in, you're thinking, I like the look of this. Don't get too attached because it will all blurry around the place. Rust is a more... what's she talking about? Wool and linen are easier as they have a protein in them. Oh, I think she was talking about if you're dyeing fabric, and cotton needs more help. Aluminium and copper can be more forgiving. So she was talking about the different metals you use, the different pots you use. Iron as a metal is heavier going, and you use a very small amount. So a rusty nail or a bulldog clip, anything rusty, and only use a small amount. And you can mix the metals. They all have different properties and they make the colour different. Here's the aluminium pot, and she had that on a heat. So you've got warm water that's sort of stewing like you're making a tea. And inside that pot, she had bits of she oak, she had bits of metal. So these are the things that are going to turn your colours to set. And here are all our ready to go samples of our booklets, ready to go in the pot, or the brew, like a tea. In the brew, use whatever there's lots of. Like if there's lots of she oak, use that. Or if there's lots of eucalyptus leaves, use that. Just put all that in the brew itself. Add a little piece of iron and slow cook it. Weigh down the lid to keep everything submerged fully. So what she meant by that was put them in and then put something else sort of on top so that the pieces of paper stay right under the water. She used a stainless steel pot. Even though I've been saying aluminium, she said she used a stainless steel pot there. Cool for 30 minutes to 3 hours on a simmer. So you're cooking it for 30 minutes. I think that means they cook for 30 minutes to 3 hours on a simmer. Copper encourages your greens. So if you're doing a copper pot, or you've got a bit of copper. Avocado skins and seeds and eucalyptus leaves are both high in sun, and they sort of self-mordant. Oh, interesting. Boil up seeds of avocado. She said that can work. You can use 200 to 300 gram paperweight. Oh, I'll tell you what I've got in front of me here. I've got, what have I got? I've got 160 gram paperweight, and I've got 300. I've got 160 gram A4, and I've got 300 gram A3. There's 20 of you. How many have I got on this page? Oh, I've got 12 sheets of A3, and I've only got, I've got lots of A4. Anyway, so we'll have to decide that tomorrow. You might have some at home, some watercolour paper. You could try this out. Let it dry in the shade. Don't use cool pots as you will stain them. I think she means like don't use cooking pots, your good pots, as you will stain them. So you want to use a crummy old pot if you've got one. You can leave it in the pot overnight, cooling. Beetroot is no good. I remember mentioning that. You think it's going to be good, but it doesn't hold well. It doesn't hold the colour well. Marigolds are really good. Rose leaves are great. Turmeric sticks. He said the colour from the turmeric will last forever. Never use it unless you want everything bright yellow. Black grape skins work well. Anyway, so that I'm going to leave you with that. I'm just going to come to me. Stop presenting. Here I am. So that was wherever I've gone. Where did I go? Where did I go, people? I don't know where I've gone. I don't know why I can't see myself. That's very dull. Anyway, I was just going to show you some Anna Simryn pieces, but I can bring tomorrow. I'm going to end this call so it's not too long. Bye for now. See you tomorrow.